Thank you for joining us. This is Dr. Tommy Show. I'm America's free market doctor, Dr. Tommy McElroy. And you're listening to us live here in Wesley Chapel. And today's a special day because we have a special guest, Dr. Jonathan Yousef, lifetime family and urgent care. And also, today we're going to talk about some of the very cool things that we're talking about before the show, elections and doctor-patient relationships. But Dr. Yousef is a favorite guest of mine, one of my favorite guests, because he's got a very cool podcast, and I enjoy it. It's always cool to listen to other people who are podcasters. Dr. Yousef, how are you doing today?
Hey, thank you for having us here. So I'm kind of glad that you're on the other end of the podcast, because now I don't have to fiddle with those things and let you handle the IT portion of this.
I've never done it on the other end. It'd be kind of interesting.
It probably is going to be easier because I'm just going to relax and enjoy the show and maybe get a little bit of information. So this is my opportunity to gather some information from Dr. Tommy as well.
Yeah. Tell us about your practice, because I know about your practice. But
So yeah, I've been the last 8 to 10 years I've been working on a practice, basically my lifetime family and urgent care. And we have kind of a motto called "Your Doctor for a Lifetime." It gives you that good, fun, fuzzy feeling inside that I'm going to be your lifetime doctor, not just for today, not just for tomorrow, but for the rest of your life. Mm-hmm. And so that kind of motto, or that culture that we created in the office, started off as just a primary care office where we had a few urgent care items like an x-ray machine and a couple other tools, and then slowly but surely built it up over the years to be something I feel like I'm proud of, a culture in there that treats you like family, and people can come and get a little bit more than just their traditional healthcare stuff, but could look at some alternative things as well. So I have a lot of opportunities for people to come in for that kind.
So you're one of a dying breed, not to be morbid, but you're a solo practitioner. Mm-hmm. You're not part of some big conglomerate. You're not a hospital employee. And here you are, you're this family doctor, but you also have, it's not just like you said, it's not just like chronic illness, but you have all this variety of things. And you're a doctor of osteopathy, so you also know all the different things that come along with that. Yeah.
So as one of the reasons that has attracted me to not only listening to your podcast, but finding out more is the concierge portion of it. And more I'm seeing that as a medical physician in this country, we are constantly having to conform to or sort of pay homage to either the insurance company or the federal government to kind of appease their wishes, right?
Exactly.
Their needs. But what about the patients? Where are the patients and how are they involved in this?
And that's such a rare thing to hear from physicians. I'm not blowing our own horns or anything, but yeah, you're right. This is an unspoken thing. It's almost like the elephant in the room, but it's actually the third party in the room. Like when you and I go into a room, if there's a third party there, they may be influencing what we're doing. Not necessarily a malignant way, but it's not like they're not known. You know?
I have to worry about, is this going to be covered? Is this not going to be covered? Is this prescription going to need a prior authorization? This referral going to require several steps before I have to get in there, and then I'm spending half the time asking them if they've gotten their flu shots or their.
So tell people why you have to ask them that.
Well, all of these requirements that in order to get paid, you almost have to follow the rules and regulations.
This is kabuki theater. It's just like. Okay, here you are for your splinter. How about your tetanus shot? Correct. Okay, that may be related. How about your polio vaccine? Well, I don't know. Right. Or do you smoke? Do you have a gun in the house? Are you married? Who do you like to have sex with? What color are you?
Do you do drugs?
Yeah, do you do drugs? Yeah. Do you do inhalants? You're asking an 85-year-old lady, do you huff paint?
Yeah.
And she's like, I have a sore throat.
They ask me about fall risk factors, and and some of my patients just don't have not that they're not important. Obviously, there's actually some studies to show that those things are important. Sure.
But you're smart enough.
It's not all relevant, right?
You're smart enough to figure that out. We're doctors. Hey, heck, we went through how many years of school? And to be treated like some child that you have to say, okay, now go down the list. Did you ask him about this? And if not, you're not going to get paid. That's the real...
It's not optional. You have to do it. You want to get paid for it, you have to do it. But the patients are annoyed already at the fact that they have to go through 10 steps to get to you.
Yeah.
Right? They have to get to that front desk, then the insurance company, and then verification process, and these questionnaires that are like 5 pages long.
Yeah.
And so it's not an easy process for the patient.
Before the show, and I don't want to get too involved with personal stuff, but we were talking about there's different strategies. I've chosen a different strategy, obviously. But there's others, there's people out there that are changing.
I'm happy, and that's one of the reasons I'm here, is just because I want to get your sort of feedback as well as to what can we do, as providers to improve that.
We try to eliminate, what we do in membership medicine, we try to eliminate anything that's extraneous to the doctor-patient relationship. That's what we were talking about earlier. Our wonderful podcast sponsor and also a sponsor of Dr. Tommy Show's Atlas MD. And Atlas MD, man, is a beautiful EMR.
I saw that on your computer.
Yeah, Dr. Josh says, EMR is a 4-letter word usually. People hear the word EMR, they're like, ugh. But EMR, like Atlas MD, is like, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, there's like a pain after the EMR.
It's just like, it's this dirty feeling.
What do I have to do that? Yeah.
But it's the same thing with membership medicine, just eliminate that.
I saw your EMR, and what I really liked about it was you can communicate with the patient in a safe zone, so that there's no secure, and you can communicate with them not only on an email format but in text format as well as just entering the information in, like you can get pictures and so I think that's where the missing key is, right?
And that's the technology of the current day, and yet our doctors or our medical profession is behind.
Sure, like EMR is supposed to help. So technology is helping people. If you go on the internet, if you go in the banking industry, everything is supposed to help you make it easier. You get a mobile, but in EMR,
it's the opposite.
It's the opposite. You are more constrained and less helpful in terms of you got to put more input into your information. You have to input. You have to input the history and the physical examination and all of these that could, there's a lot of automatic things that could be done, or the technology should be there so that you don't have that much to do, and that should be coming in.
Luckily, we in membership medicine, we do have that ability, is that we can eliminate all those extraneous problems that allow you make it to where you can't do that.
I would love to have this movement that's in the industry. It's not just me and you. There's a movement that's happening all around the country, and doctors and patients are noticing that they're not getting that personal touch anymore. That they have to do a lot of extraneous activity to get to where we want to go. But it's not much more helpful to get the patients to heal, as you could look at obesity rising, and you can see that the modern medications being utilized more and more. Well, what if the incentive was to create a better patient, or to improve the patient's health, or what I call optimizing that patient? If I don't optimize that patient to their goal, then what am I doing more for them? What is the benefit that they're going to have by me having an EMR information? And so I need to be able to communicate with them, such as with Atlas, for example, is a good way to communicate without having the overhead, the extraneous stuff, the extra stuff that we have to work so hard to get away from.
And I think patients are going to demand that. They're not going to just sit by and let their lifestyle be more convenient when they're consuming whether movies and their TV shows. Their transportation's more convenient now with Uber and things like that. I think patients are going to not just sit around and say, well, I accept the fact that my medical care is stuck in the 1980s or the 1970s.
I'm very passionate. Like we get so passionate, me and you, I think about this, because we are in that point of our careers where we're seeing more and more that we have to make a change. And one thing I want to kind of give you props for, and again, I didn't mention this earlier, but Dr. Tommy, I'm a big fan of yours because of the skill that you have to take on this bigger, more like this juggernaut, that's basically healthcare right now. You're taking it on to provide extra care for your patients. Almost taking a chance, and something I don't think a lot of people are doing. But in your practice, you have the Fit Club,
right?
Which I think it's amazing that how do we not think of medicine and exercise and diet as essential, right? These are two like synergistic or necessary tools, but we don't have any other provider in the area that I know of that has a fit club.
I think it's just because, insurance won't pay for it. So like back to your point, unless if you have to do an insurance practice, you're constrained by what you can do. I mean, you can spend extra money to do it, but our patients pay for it, so our membership fee pays for it. So it's kind of inclusive.
Can you tell me more about that Fit Club? Because what I've kind of heard from...
So Monday and Thursday we have Fit Club. 6 Fit Club is 45 minutes. And what we try to do is do things that you can replicate at home with minimal equipment. So a lot of our stuff is body weight exercises. Tracy is our clinic coordinator. She runs it. It began Dylan running it, who's our personal trainer. Then Tracy started running it. Tracy's been running it for, I don't know how long we've been doing it now, 2 years. But basically it's body weight exercises. Also limited weights, so dumbbells, kettlebells, jump ropes, and we're always finding new things. I mean, we probably have an armamentarium of like 200 different exercises we'll do, but we'll do mostly circuit-based training. We usually run about 4 or 5 circuits. So last night we did a circuit where we warmed up, so we did jumping jacks, we did some stretching, we did some high knees, and then we went right into the first circuit. And the first circuit was, I think it was kettlebell swings, planking, they call them log cutters or something like that, lumberjacks, where you slowly move a dumbbell like this, and then there was one more. But anyway, you rotated through them a minute at each time, and then we ran a lap after it. And I tell you, we took our first break, and we had just finished that one circuit. We start at 6 o'clock. Guess what time it was? And I felt like I was like, this is a tough one. 6:13.
Wow.
So it's like a lot of bang for your buck. But it's very fun. It's high intensity. But it's also it's scalable to your needs. So if you're a patient that a lot of times we get patients that say, look, I haven't worked out. I haven't worked out since I was whatever, or I haven't jumped rope since grade school. So you're able to just do as much as you can. So if you can only plank, we're planking for a minute. If you can only plank for 10 seconds at a time, that's it. So the goal is like this week you plank for 10 seconds at a time. Next week you plank for 15 seconds at a time, and then in a month you're planking for a minute straight like everybody else.
So there's 2 things that I really love about what you just said, and the first is, number one, you are actually in the class, so you're doing the class side by side,
suffering as well,
right? You're suffering, but also like these are your patients. So there's a family and like a closeness, that
kind of like yours, your lifetime,
exactly,
it's like cohesiveness,
and that's something I admire. And the second thing is that I don't know if people realize it or not, but what you're doing usually would cause, and you could join up a different gym or memberships, and I'd like to do martial arts, and I kind of mentioned that in my podcast, but the people pay anywhere between $50 to $200 for what you just provided in those 2 days, that you're giving them this value that they would normally paying for anyway. So here's 2 to 3 days a week, that
twice a week, Monday and Thursday,
that people can go in and join up, and here you're going side by side with your physician. I mean, I don't see how anybody could possibly lose with like that kind of care.
I tell you, the more that join, the more fun it is. It's a lot of fun whenever you have a lot of people joining in, because that's what, like you said, the camaraderie, the spirit of it, that's what allows you to just have fun. It's like when we did the Savage Race. There's my medal.
I saw
when we did Savage Race, that was fun because it was a group of us together, and we were just we're all together.
Did you have some patients as well?
Absolutely.
There? So
we had some patients. We only had one person get injured.
Yeah.
It was not, well,
I was going to suggest that would be.
We were hoping that no one got catastrophically injured. No one did.
Good.
One person hurt his shoulder.
Yeah.
But otherwise, everybody did well. And the
best thing is that you were right there to help out, or so.
I did have to examine his shoulder, and I determined that it wasn't torn. It was just a subluxation. One of the things is today's a voting day, and so one of the things that you brought up, which I think was real cool, is you have more information than I do about one of the amendments. So
the one of the amendments that's on the ballot is the Second Amendment, which basically will open up more of the marijuana, the medical use of marijuana. So originally, and this is one of the things that I kind of had to deal with at my Florida conference, and so they told us that somewhere around July or August there was a kind of a private ballot that basically happened where medical marijuana was legalized in Florida. Medical prescriptions, sorry, not prescriptions, medical marijuana. And the reason why I say prescriptions and not and recommendations, and I have to distinguish between that, is because you cannot prescribe, or physicians cannot prescribe medical marijuana. It's still a Scheduled 1 medication that is essentially illegal.
Right.
As
Like
in
cocaine.
the federal, correct. As
Right,
a
I think-
federal
yeah.
regulations still prohibit us from prescribing medical marijuana. So they're recommending, or a physician can recommend it. So in that ballot around July and August, there was, it was approved for medical purposes for 3 conditions only. It was for seizures, which is basically has to be confirmed by 2 physicians, by the way. Muscle spasms, which again has to be confirmed by 2 separate physicians. And the third is terminally ill, it could be cancer or disease, and it has to be within a year. So that, as you could tell, that very limited scope of where you can prescribe medical marijuana. And you have to have a relationship for your physician at least 3 months before you can even get a recommendation.
A recommendation.
Yes, correct. And the second part of it is that you, as a physician, have to get a CME course of about a day in order. So you have to spend 8 hours at a CME course. It's something that you can do.
Do you have to smoke marijuana at the course? Just to see?
Just to get through it?
Yeah. No, just to see if so you can know if it's the right thing to prescribe?
I don't think that, well, first of all, they're very strict on the federal level, even as a medical. So, patients who are trying to get it for non-medical purposes, you're going to find themselves have some legal action can be taken against them on not only on a state level but a federal. Nobody's going to protect you if as a patient. As a physician, you too are. If you're not very careful and follow those strict guidelines, you are going to put yourself at risk for liability as well as even criminal.
So is that what's
action.
on the ballot now?
That was already passed.
Okay,
No,
that was passed.
Correct.
Okay.
The ballot now wants to extend it for example, post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. PTSD is one of the 3 or 4 new added Crohn's disease, I think multiple sclerosis, a few other, if I'm not mistaken, I think those are the ones that, and there's a few others, but once it opens it up to a condition like PTSD or a PTSD-like condition, then now a patient with generalized anxiety disorder or a patient who has other medical conditions who may fall under the same category may be able to have a little bit more leniency in terms of what they can use it for. The problem again is making sure that those guidelines are followed. 3 months. Those conditions are documented by 2 separate physicians in order for you to qualify. So you don't want to go, like, a physician does not want to take into lightly when they take this course, because they're still going to have some liability. That's and of course insurances. You think they're going to cover this?
No.
Probably not.
No.
And there's going to be a lot of resistance.
Well, what do you think is the reason that in some states there is this very almost, you can get it for stress. It's not even ICD-9 code. So why is it that there's such a variation? Is that just, you think that's just the will of the people, or do you think that's more industrial, meaning that the corporate environment is different? Because obviously, if you have medical marijuana, let's say you have medical marijuana in the state, not soon after medical marijuana is made legal does marijuana become legal. That's just the kind of, you can look at it, looking where the places are where marijuana is legal now. It was always preceded with medical
Colorado.
marijuana, and then that's kind of like the camel getting his nose in the tent, and then before you know it, the camel's taking your tent away. But so do you think that the major reason that it's taken so long in Florida is because why would it be behind California, for instance, or Colorado, or
because of the leniency in California? What you're seeing is places opening up at a hotel, or for example, and people walking in for X amount of dollars. They're getting a recommendation for medical marijuana, and the condition is not necessarily falls into those guidelines. And so I think that's the fear that this is where it's going with Florida, is that can we be opening ourselves up to this kind of just free for all on the medical marijuana? And I think that's where they want to have a little bit more control over it. I fear the same thing. I fear that those places that open up and they're just looking for financial and benefit will harm the whole point of having that.
Do you think there is? I mean, have you followed any of it? Is there like we have patients that have. We have a couple patients have a house in Colorado, for instance.
Yes.
We're legal marijuana. And she was saying that it's hard. Sometimes they're trying to build a house out there, and the subcontractors maybe won't come to work, and it's just because they're stoned. Or she'll say she'll go to a restaurant and order a salad, and then the waitress doesn't bring a salad, and she's like, I ordered a salad. She's like, oh yeah, I forgot. It's just kind of like this. Oh well, this attitude.
I think that so the way the medical marijuana is going to be, how it's going to affect people, there's two kinds. There's the CBDs and the THC. So the CBDs are the cannabinoid receptors, and the THC has the one that sort of gives you that high or that euphoria. And so a lot of patients are going to be prescribed the CBDs.
Okay.
The CBDs are a little safer in terms of what they can be used for. They can be used for seizure, for example. And so when we're thinking about that first topic where we said there were three things that there's approved for currently, CBDs are approved for the seizure and for the muscle spasms. The THC, which is kind of the euphoria, can be used for people with the end stage cancer or disease that is with less than a year. So what you're going to see happening is that the CBDs can be used more. They're safe. They're not going to give you that euphoria, that high, but they're going to be safe for medical purposes.
Right.
If we see a lot more people getting it for conditions that are not truly medical, that are just, anxiety, or for people who are just want to use it for the euphoria prospects, I think that's where you're going to see some harm. I think that anything that's addictive is going to be harmful, though, right? We could have alcohol, for example, or over-the-counter.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think about that, though? If they did have it where marijuana is more widespread, if you were to go as a physician, would you say that marijuana is more, let's say, worse than alcohol? Is it better than alcohol? Is they both have their own drawbacks and potential benefits, So it's hard. I don't know. What do you think?
I think there's a controversy. Both sides of the aisle can probably tell you their side of it, right? That they had a young person who it was their gateway, and unfortunately they have such a bad experience that way. And I think those are the ones that you see on the administrative levels or the higher levels going after, having such a passion against marijuana.
Right.
And I'll give them that, that is not. But yes, alcohol. I mean, if you see the destruction alcohol has had.
Well, it was illegal there for a period of time,
Right.
And if you think back about it now, to us it seems absolutely ludicrous that alcohol was ever illegal, but certainly it was illegal. I mean, that's what the Prohibition era was about.
There's a whole, the policy in America. When policy becomes criminal, that's when you have to question it, because what ends up happening is, and so we have both candidates right now, Hillary and Trump, and both are going at it, and they're almost calling each other criminal in what activities they're. But what's happening is when it's just policy, right? Like you at one point had illegal, alcohol being illegal, and you were being put in jail, and what if we turned smoking, for example, into being a criminal activity?
Right.
And people have been smoking would we turn back the clock and say, hey, everybody that was smoking, is now considered a criminal? Well, I think that's where we're seeing the difference between
illegality and morality.
Exactly.
Is not always the same. What's illegal is not immoral, and what's immoral is not always illegal.
The ethical questions behind when policy or laws or statutes are in place, they don't represent necessarily an ethical problem, but rather like if your homeowners association is all over you because you left something out in the yard, that's not criminal, but they make you feel like it's
illegal. You could get fined for it.
Exactly.
You could lose your property.
Exactly.
I think we're going to look back now, and I think my personal opinion is that this medical marijuana is going to pass this time.
probably looking like it, doesn't it?
Because it only missed by 2 points last time. I think it has to be 60%. Yeah. So it only missed by like 2 points last time. I think it's going to pass this time. I think you're going to see Florida become the next legal marijuana state. And then becomes the experiment, so to speak, I think, of what happens. Is drinking going to go down? If people have the option, instead of drinking beer, instead of going home and drinking a 6-pack or a shot or whatever, if they want to smoke a joint instead, are you going to see the consumption of alcohol go down? Are you going to see violent crime go down because people aren't getting drunk and fighting each other? Are you going to see hard drugs go up because now people are getting high and they were never getting high before? They were just getting drunk, but now they're like, cool, I want to get high with Coke instead of marijuana. And granted, it's a completely different high, although I've never had Coke. But I just think that it's going to be interesting to see. But I think my personal opinion is I think it's going to pass this time, and then you're going to see next time is just going to be regular. It's going to be like, we're going to be like Colorado.
Yeah.
Because if you go to a concert, like I went to a blues concert, there's cops, not a lot of cops, but there's cops around. People are walking around smoking joints. No one's fighting. No one got knifed. And this was in St. Pete, but people smoking. The same thing at concerts, you smell it everywhere. So I think it's kind of, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see, though. It's going to happen soon, I think.
There's already research coming out of these states that have legalized it showing not only the benefits financially to the state, but also the decline in other drugs.
Oh, really? That's what I didn't know. I didn't know if that was true.
Yeah, and I think that's where you're seeing it on a practical level, but it's actually showing studies and research that's already showing from these states. In fact, the state in Florida right now has the grant with the USF. I think it's not USF, but UF. Speaking of Gators, right?
Yes, go Gators.
So I think that they have a contract with them or a grant that allows them to collect the data regarding because what's going to happen is, let's say a physician recommends a product, they enter that patient's name into the database, and there is a sort of like a information that the patient will be providing, like, for example, how it's benefiting them or what are the conditions that it's being treated for. And then they're collecting this data and sort of providing us with a sort of, are we getting the information? What is the information or what are the benefits? Because before we weren't able to study marijuana, we weren't able to have a study that showed it because it was a Scheduled I. Right. It was illegal. It was very difficult to run any research on it. So now we have an opportunity to tell us for real how it's really affecting us and to publish data regarding it.
Yeah, that's interesting because I just watched a documentary. One of our patients had us recommend I watch a documentary on stem cells. And they were in one of the stem cells that they use in the documentary is fetal stem cells. And they were saying about how there's not a lot of research into it because it's fetal stem cells as opposed to adult stem cells.
You heard about the placenta one too?
Placental, and then there's embryonic. So I don't know if that's the same as fetal. But anyway, there's a lot of things, like you said, well, now with marijuana, they'll be able to actually study it.
I think that's the kind of stuff that we should be allowing for and probably should have been done years ago.
Bet you the students at UF will probably be in favor of allowing it to be studied. They're on campus too.
Yeah, I'm sure that we are all under these high regulations and compliance that it's going to be very difficult to get around it unless we open it up even further. So if it stands as it is right now without the Amendment 2 passing, you're going to see only a few people being able to get it recommended, legally, but it's going to open it up a lot more once that
I think it's going to pass, but we'll see. We'll see the results.
Today's the day, right? Election day today. So 2016. This is probably the most divided.
And it took me like 5 minutes. It was no problem at all. I never wait though when I go vote. I always go on voting day, and I hardly ever have to wait. I know there's some people all across the country have had to wait.
Yeah. I did mine in mail.
I voted the first time in 1996. So I voted in every presidential election since. It's like 20 years now. It's my 20-year anniversary.
Wow.
So that's kind of cool. I remember I first voted. I was 18 years old. Yeah. And so tell me your podcast. How do we listen to your podcast? And tell us what your podcast is about.
So I call it Optimizing Your Medical Health or Networking for Your Optimal Health. And the reason why I use the word optimal health is because people can I could treat their blood pressure, their diabetes, their cholesterol, but one of the things but I'm not optimizing them. I'm not getting them to their target goal or to get them at their most efficient body weight and endurance and lifestyle. And so I think when you're not optimizing, you're going actually backwards. You're not getting the productive, efficient quality of life that you need to be having. And so what I created the podcast was, well, first of all, I went to your podcasting seminar, right? So again, giving you props. Once I went to your seminar, I said, there's something here that I can give to the patients and an extension of myself. It's sort of like me, because I've listened to your podcast and there's a personal touch.
Dr. Yousef in your phone.
Exactly.
You're driving.
Right. I get to control all facets of their life.
Yes. You know? When their husband's talking and they're just like, shh.
Yeah, you listen to me in the car, at work, at home.
The husband's off in the background and she's like, sure, whatever.
Yeah, yeah, like you're working out. Here you go. Just listen to Dr. Yousef.
Yeah. You got like a very soothing voice.
Thank you.
I like it though, because I like your podcast. I listen to it and I like how you were telling me about it. You have a reason for doing it, but you start your podcast off. It's like, hey, this is Dr. Jonathan Yousef, networking for your optimal health. We're going to talk about this. And then you go into it, and then just kind of subtly in there, hi, this is Dr. Jonathan Yousef. We're talking about this. You kind of review it. And even though it's not a long podcast, it is nice because people are probably watching this. They're like, good Lord, when are they going to stop? We just keep going and going and going.
We're going to have to edit.
This is live.
They're already they're already done it 5 minutes into it. But but the one I like about my insomnia one, because I like to use that one, such a soothing voice. But at the end of the podcast, I tell you, if you're not seeing any benefits in your insomnia, you just have to listen to the podcast twice and then you'll fall asleep. So
the one I really like, you talk about optimizing your health, is the testosterone one or the hormone one, because that's one of the things that I'm actually, I already did a talk on that, but we're doing a talk coming up at Palms Pharmacy on healthy weight loss. But we did one on optimizing your hormonal health, I think it was called. Balanced Hormones, Balanced Life it was called. Right. But anyway, people will come to me and their testosterone level is not on the scale, on the lab test, is not low. It's 250 to 1,000 or 1,100 is considered normal, quote unquote. Well, they come in here and they're like 300. They're like, I feel like this, and this. I'm like looking down all their lists. I'm like, okay, you need testosterone. So I optimize their testosterone. So when you use the term low active, do you mean low active, it's in the normal range, or are you using that as a synonym for off the range?
Well, I think I'd probably start by saying that not everybody's hormone levels are the same for their body type. So, for example, when you're in your 20s and 30s, you're going to have a higher testosterone level.
Right.
For someone like myself, I looked back, and I luckily had one when I was in my late 20s to show a low testosterone. So when I checked it again, even though it was low, it was around 200, 275, I looked back and I said, that's where I've been all my life.
So for you, that's your normal.
Exactly. But for another person, they may have been at 500 or 800 and now they drop down. So they have a significant change.
So do you do not a screening one because it's not screening, but do you do a usual testosterone as part of the normal physical for most people?
I do for my patients because cool. I do think that it's important. I mean, if you're young and not have any symptoms, I may not. But if you are at that age where I should probably kind of get your baseline, I would like to do that.
Like in your 30s then, maybe.
I think you should. I personally do. It's, again, when you're talking about concierge medicine, it's not that much of a cost, and I think it's an added tool that you can use, even not necessarily now, but later.
What's your thought on hormones and females and taking hormones in general, but also like testosterone?
Yes. So women have testosterone, just like they have with estrogen, but their estrogen is much greater than their testosterone, and they're a fraction of what a male testosterone would have. But when their testosterone is too high, there's actually a condition called PCOS, which is the polycystic ovarian syndrome. And that means that they have a lot of testosterone, creating facial hair acne and some mood changes.
Reproductive problems too, right?
Yeah. So when you have patients with either low testosterone for women or high testosterone, what you really want, and as you worded so eloquently, is balance. Balance those two with their estrogens, progesterones. So if they have a high testosterone, either you could lower their testosterone to match their estrogens, or get their estrogen up to match their testosterone.
Okay.
And one of the things that females will symptoms. I like to go with symptoms. So if someone feels hot flashes, mood swings, and night sweats, you're thinking about estrogen. You're thinking estrogen would be a great addition to their symptoms.
Okay.
Because those are the menopausal or premenopausal symptoms or postmenopausal. When you're thinking about energy, mood, strength,
that's
muscle
testosterone.
tone, correct, that's
Right.
testosterone. Progesterone helps with like headaches and sleep, skin and hair changes. So again, and then there's thyroid and adrenals and all these
Sure.
others. And what you want to do is just look at those and balance them together.
Do you ever have a problem when you're giving a man testosterone where they get to a level and they just want more? Like, you're like, look, you're at 800 now, you're good. And they're like, I want to get to 1100.
Yeah. So
What do you tell them?
Well, I first of all, I tell them that there's a limit to where I go with the testosterone. You have certain conditions in your body, like your liver, your hemoglobin, for example, which is the thickness of your blood, can go up, and it could cause multiple medical problems. So for me, if somebody asks me to go beyond, and I usually don't recommend more than 1 cc a week of the testosterone if they're doing an injection or if they're getting the cream, I recommend limiting it, because any more than that is really just going to create more side effects for them.
Yeah, you're not going to have a benefit, and it's just going to add side effects.
And that's not optimal, right?
Right.
If you're going above that, you're not getting the optimal. You're not being efficient.
You're just having more.
Exactly. Look at other things. If they're still having symptoms, ask them, well, what else is going on?
Right.
Are you sleeping well? Are you eating right? Because I have obese patients that take testosterone and they don't get muscular.
Right.
Their levels are skyrocketing, but all they're doing is just getting worse medically.
What is some things if, let's say you get somebody that's got low testosterone or whatever, they're not feeling good, but they don't want to do testosterone. They want to try to raise it naturally. Are these like DHEA? Is that a good thing to use, or what can you do? Exercise. I know you can do exercise.
Like building those big muscle groups, like your thighs, your chest, your back. Those are the ones that are going to naturally bring it up. Your diet, right? Reducing your fat content, because then you get to produce more testosterone, and then the estrogen, the aromatization of it.
So you reduce your fat.
Reduce your fat.
Do you eat more meat, or do you just
reduce
your fat?
You can. I think that you have to eat more of the healthy fats, as well as healthy
fish and things like
fish,
that.
tuna, turkey, lean meats, and even some good fats, right? Nuts, and because cholesterol actually is the building block for your testosterone,
right?
Mm-hmm. And so you want to definitely try the natural way. If you've burnt out the natural, you can actually, there's 2 medications that can be used before you do testosterone. If you want to be fertile, for example, you're in the fertility stage of your life, you may want to consider HCG, the human gonadotropin hormone. This is an optional. I'm not trying, I'm not recommending everything. I'm just saying that these are some options that people have. But the HCG can increase your abilities, your testes, to produce more testosterone naturally.
By itself.
Because, it's not extra testosterone that you would exogenously give or give them through their muscular.
So how would you choose to do that versus doing testosterone?
If they're fertile, if they don't have that low of a testosterone, if their symptoms are early.
Okay. So then you could try HCG.
And then there's Clomid.
Clomid is a estrogen antagonist.
It was originally used for
it's for reproductive. Yeah,
correct.
Yeah.
Yep, getting the fertility going. So what it does is it'll stimulate. Again, it's just similar to it's similar to the HCG, but it's a similar fashion. It's in pill form. Again, not as strong as testosterone.
So HCG is pills or injections?
HCG injections.
Okay.
HCG is actually a very small needle injection.
How long would you do that for? Would you do it for a month and then check levels?
If you are young and you are early on in your phase, you might want to cycle, right? People will cycle so that their production of natural testosterone continues, so that they don't have a shutting off of the testosterone, so they can cycle through. Again, you can also cycle with testosterone. You can take it for a month and stop. And I think that there's actually been some studies, but none of them have been conclusive. And these are A lot of our information, by the way, comes from experiences and not necessarily all done on research.
Right.
There's no pharmaceutical industry right this moment researching these. They're not expensive medication, and they've been around for so many years that we don't know for sure. But the cycling, for example, is something that we in the industry, or the functional medicine industry has known about and has used to sort of offset the possible side effects of using testosterone.
Yeah, so much to.
I know.
So much to, but that's why you say go to Optimal Health's website. How do you get to your podcast?
So I'm on iTunes. There's you could.
So what do they search for on iTunes?
Jonathan Yousef,
Okay.
Jonathan Yousef, Yousef. So basically, you just search for Jonathan Yousef on iTunes. You can look me up. First of all, Lifetime Family Urgent Care has a connection to it. So if you go to my website, you'll see my podcast and YouTube.
Okay.
A little bit of the YouTube, as Dr. Tommy told us about some ways to sort of use the podcast to get onto YouTube as well.
Okay.
I use that technology to do that. So you can get me on YouTube as well by Jonathan Yousef. Subscribe, review it.
Okay.
I'm always up for input, because one of the things that, again, I learned from Dr. Tommy. I know I'm giving you all his props you get.
Right.
If you knew what he did on the back
was
end.
paid.
Right? I know. Like,
I paid him $500 to say that.
He's paid me nothing, by the way. In fact, I'm getting from him, so I feel kind of bad that you got all these great ideas at your practice, and I want to talk about you a little bit, because that's kind of like my excitement to do this, like the podcast and so on. How did you get into doing podcasting?
Robin Hatfield, JSP Tampa.
Wow.
So she is my marketing partner. So she told me that we started working together about a year ago. And so she says, Tommy, you need a podcast. And I'm like, okay. And I thought podcast, I don't know what podcast. So I never listened to podcasts. She kept telling me, you got to do a podcast. So I said, okay, fine, I'll do a podcast. And I said, well, I'm going to do a podcast. And I never listened to one. I just did one. She told me about Audacity. I did some research. I said, well, I'm going to do it like a radio show. I listen to talk radio. I know how talk radio format is. You have bumper music. You have the intro. You take a break. You have a commercial. You have more bumper music. You have intro. And that's how I did my podcast. And I just started calling people. I interviewed anybody at first. Anybody would want to sit down and talk, I interview them. And then I started being a little bit more selective, started picking topics that I felt like people wanted to listen to. So I thought, well, I'm interested in this. Hopefully other people are. And then I started kind of selecting out what I thought people would be interested in. And then I started emailing people. Like I just email anybody. And I don't like draw a limit like I'm not going to email that person because they won't respond. Because if they don't, it's like asking a girl out at the bar. It's just like, do you want to go out? No. Okay, cool. I'll go to the next one. You get 10 of them, and one of them will say yes. So the same thing is I emailed people that I wanted to come on. Some of them said yes. Some of them didn't respond. But, I got some pretty big names. Walter Williams is a nationally syndicated columnist, and he is a very well-known economist. He's written many books, so I got him on. He's my favorite podcast of all time from what I've done. So I just kind of went with it. And now that I've started doing this thing, I actually saw this. There's a YouTube channel called Video Marketing Madness, and the guy commented on my Echelon-Health YouTube. He's like, "Hey, you know what we do is we do a podcast by pulling the audio off of our video, and just check this out." So I went onto their website, and then I saw they said, "Well, use this OBS software," which I'm using now. And I was like, "Damn, that's easy." So then I started doing it, and then I was like, "Well, I got to show everybody else." That's why I was like, I think you should do your own.
That's what I mean, another
this is a
great idea.
$20 microphone.
Yeah.
$20 camera. I mean, you get a better camera, but it's a $20 camera. It costs $21. And these microphones cost what they cost. I mean, all in, I'm less than $500.
I actually
Maybe
liked
500.
a lot of your original speakers and some of their information because it was very practical.
Yeah.
I mean, you had people on that were talking about best insurances to get, why you should have them, HR, for example, for your office. There was information about, the patient-doctor relationship and concierge medicine, and you had patients on and people that I not only got to learn a lot about you, but also they were practical. Like, for example, the HR lady, gave us some information that was just very practical, which is, do you know those signs in your break room?
You don't have to buy them.
You don't have to buy
Paula
them.
Matthews, hr101.com. Yep.
Exactly. And I think that's kind of practical information. And what I'm trying to do is get those actionable items like that.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that I find very helpful, because I go and I use those for my own practice.
Well, like the thing you just told me about HCG. See, that's new to me. I saw it because I talked to you. But if it's on your podcast, and I do remember you saying HCG, I just didn't remember the particular about it. But that's what's cool for me is because, you go type in health podcast. I mean, my God, there'll be hundreds of them. So it's cool to be able to say, look, I know this guy. This is Dr. Yousef. Yeah. These are his podcasts. And I think it's also fun to build networks because, like you said, networking for your health.
And that's why I'm thinking is, if I network like with Dr. Tommy, if I network with some of the specialists in the community, if I network with some of the mental
LinkedIn's really
health.
good. LinkedIn. I've met a lot of people that are on my show that I only know through email and stuff, but I met them through LinkedIn.
Yeah, I think that's where you get the business aspect, the professional sort of connection. It's almost like a professional Facebook type.
Yeah. And then the other thing you can do with the podcast is, if you have your own podcast, is you tell people, hey, come on my show, and then they get to share their company, so they want to come on.
Correct.
And so you want them on, but you say, hey, look, you can come on and promote yourself. They're like, okay.
Yeah, I think it's an excellent way to not only promote yourself, but also to share some information. I bet you your listeners are both your patients as well, and they not only get a little bit more information about you and get to feel comfortable with your personality and see if it's a good match for them,
right,
but also maybe pick up on some medical things that you recommend.
Yeah.
So when we talk about sports, for example, one of the things that I noticed is, well, not only you have the Fit Club, but you also had a lot of experience with sports treatment, injuries, and then very active yourself. So.
I probably need to get to doing more stuff like medical. It's just I felt like, I don't know, sometimes when I talk about it, I feel like maybe I'm boring. So I don't know.
But people get to but like the sports side, I have some sports information, but you are, you know about these injuries, the sports related injuries a little bit more. You have some bracing, and I thought you did some physical too, some physical therapy stuff or something similar.
Yeah, we do some. I did enough physical therapy during my sports medicine training that I know enough to teach people.
Correct.
So yeah, we have our little fitness suite in here. I'll show them how to do some rotator cuff exercises, this, that, and the other.
And that's what save on so much of their time, because they would normally have to research that or maybe go and see a specialist or get a referral from their insurance company. But here you can just give them those exercises, and then And
that's the reason I did it, is because I was telling people, all right, go to the gym and find a trainer. Where's the trainer? I don't know, just grab one. Right. So I said, well, hell, I'm going to have a trainer then.
Yeah, you do. You have a trainer, and then I noticed that you also do the vitamin injections, which are amazing. The B12s, but I don't know if
been doing those for about
how many
2.5 years now.
How many practices can say that they do all of this for their patients without kind of the insurance company doesn't pay for any of that really?
Yeah.
But
that's the only reason we do it, is because we can choose whatever we want to do.
Yeah, and so that's the niche that I think people are finding.
I think you I think your type of practice and our practice, we have very similar ideals in that we want to make things as easy for our patients to get optimally better. And that's why I'm glad that you did your podcast, and I'm very thankful that you give me all those props. And I can't wait to see if you do a video. I think it'll be good.
I would love to, and maybe this will be my motivation to do that.
Well, thanks, Dr. Yousef, for coming in.
Thank you, Dr. Tommy.
And then if you want to hear more of the Ask Dr. Tommy show, go to AskDrTommy.com. If you want to hear more of the Ask Dr. Tommy show, you can subscribe on iTunes. You can also subscribe on YouTube to the Dr. Tommy show. We're going to have a cooking show coming up. Just confirmed with my brother Fred that we're going to be cooking on the 11/20. And so we will be
ready for
broadcasting
Thanksgiving.
that. Yeah, we're going to do a Filipino dish. So yeah, right before Thanksgiving, and I got the documentary coming up with Danny Jones, and hopefully we'll have Dr. Yousef back, because you're such a intelligent and well-rounded guest.
We definitely enjoyed, and thanks for mentoring me through my podcast and giving me some more information about concierge medicine.
Well, thanks for being in, and thank you for joining us today. And if you have any more questions or suggestions, contact us through the website. Until next time, bye-bye.